Hey there, it's Chris from Good Roads, and this is the carcass of my first 3D printer. A TiVo Tornado that I modded to death, trying to make it a silent, direct drive, high flow, large format printer. And just as I was killing it softly with my tools, the Artillery Sidewinder was released. It did everything I wanted and more, and it even had some notable improvements. It has silent stepper drivers, a simple, intuitive touchscreen interface, a better build surface, and these ribbon cables, which a lot of people don't like, but I absolutely love because it means I don't have a rat's nest of cables everywhere. And this printer has served me well for years, all with the exception of one part. This right here, the direct drive extruder hot end combo. And here's why. With any kind of standard hot end issue, whether a clogged nozzle or an extruder repair, this whole section of the printer needs to be completely disassembled, which is a tedious, awkward task. After one such failure and weeks of downtime, I had enough. I'd pushed my printers hard, but I need them up and running, and for reliability's sake, this whole configuration had to go. And from my days upgrading my Tornado, I'm no stranger to extruder upgrades, and I'm tired of it, so this time I sprang for the creme de la creme. A dual gear direct drive Bondtech extruder with a high-end copperhead hot end, which came as an out-of-the-box upgrade kit for the Artillery Sidewinder. So, what do we got here? Cooling ducts, all the appropriate cables, some bits and bobs, heat cartridges, thermistors, this handsome man right here, and some tools and adapters and a manual. Cool, let's get building. First, I need to disassemble the stock working end of the Sidewinder, hopefully for the last time. And we're actually going to keep most of these components except for the heat control elements and the heat break fan. Next, I've got to assemble my shiny new hot end. Nice tolerances. Very nice tolerances. Oh, very nice tolerances, my god. And in order to mount the new extruder on the machine, I've got to replace the stock bolts with these threaded offset bolts that came with my upgrade kit. Okay, perhaps. Nope. Metric. Nope, alright, shite. With that done, I've got to open up the extruder to seat the hot end in place. This process is slightly different if you're going with a Bowden setup. You bolt the hot end in place and then constrain the filament path with some PTFE tubing. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little anxious about having PTFE in the cold side of this setup, but this Slice Engineering hot end is rated for some impressively high temperatures, so hopefully I won't have any problems there. Fingers crossed. Then I can reassemble the extruder and yeah, that looks pretty dang slick. You then bolt the extruder and stepper around the X carriage, mounting everything in place. Then the thermistor and heat cartridge need to be inserted, and this hot end uses heat transfer compound, which is a little odd. Again, something I'll want to keep my eye on. The hot end fan gets mounted. And then the part cooling fan. The part cooling duct that comes with the upgrade kit is a snap and friction fit. It's a nicely designed featherweight sintered nylon part, but I'll say now that mine came loose in an early print, crashed into the nozzle, melted, and caused a failure. As nice as the part is, I think this attachment is something that could use some reconsidering. All the electronic components get reconnected to the breakout board, and the board gets mounted in place. This next part is the only bit of the upgrade that I thought was a bit odd. This loom that connects the stepper motor to the breakout board needs 2 of its cables reversed so the stepper will run in the right direction. It's not too hard of a fix, but I do feel like including a properly wired loom in the upgrade kit would make for a more complete out-of-the-box product. That said, all you have to do is depress the 2 center contacts on one of the connectors and reverse them, so all the wires run in parallel with each other. Then the whole assembly can be reattached to the printer. The newly routed loom can be used to reattach the stepper motor. And the one last step in the upgrade is to use the included offset to move the Z end stop up to accommodate the added height of the new extruder hot end combo. Then it's just a matter of releveling the bed. What the hell? Like, seriously? Did we forget that we need an X offset as well? Why can nothing ever go smoothly? As assembled, the upgrade kit crashed the hot end cooling fan into the X-axis stepper motor before hitting the end switch, causing the machine to lose steps and make a horrid, awful noise. And more importantly, not work. As a quick fix, I scooted the whole X-axis board over a bit, but that bent the ribbon cable, so as a more long-term solution, I eventually replaced the end stop with one that had longer leads and printed myself an offset. I don't know if I'm missing something here, but this feels like an oversight. Okay, well, sure, I guess. Anyway, with that sorted, I can finally level the bed, and then we're done, right? Well, no. Hope you're comfortable with a text editor because the printer's firmware needs to be updated to work with the new hardware. I won't go into a ton of detail here because all I did was follow the video and upgrade guide from Teaching Tech. I'll link all of that down below. The short version is you need to update the E-steps for the extruder. Mine wound up going from the stock 445 down to 400. And while you're in there mucking around, you should probably enable these EEPROM settings which allow you to push firmware updates through G-code instead of having to flash the whole dang thing. Great, then we just plug it in and update the firmware, right? Well, no. And this was the most frustrating part of the upgrade because the information was kind of scattered all over the internet and hard to track down. Hopefully I can save anyone else trying to tackle this some confusion. It turns out the main board of the Sidewinder can only handle one serial connection at a time, and that fancy touchscreen is using it. So in order to flash the firmware, we need to disconnect the touchscreen and free up that serial connection. Which means you have to open the whole thing up, and just to add insult to injury, the connectors are hot glued in place. Artillery. This machine has been great, but I pray that future versions of it are easier to work on. Okay, with all that done, I can finally flash the firmware. And with that, the printer was up and running, but as I mentioned, I had an early problem with my heat cooling duct, so I had to design and print myself another one. My resin printer was the only one up and running at this point, so I used it to print myself this duct, and I removed the support material, cured the part, and got it mounted in place. And then we can print, right? Right? It sure seems like it heats up right and melts plastic good. Let's see. Fingers crossed, man. Yes, finally, up and running again. I've been using the set of upgrades for a couple months now, and for all the hassle they were to install, it really is a nice change. I especially like the locking lever arm on the Bondtech extruder. This is an expensive set of upgrades. It's really high end. And for the price, I wish the cooling fan duct were more reliable and that the possibility of an X-axis crash was accounted for. For the money I spent, I feel like those are details that should have been sorted out. But if those two improvements were in place, I'd feel like this is a set of parts that I could recommend wholeheartedly. They really are high-end pieces of equipment. But I'm printing again, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how far I can push this hardware, especially how much better this setup should work with flexible materials. So, if you got any questions or comments, leave them down below. Subscribe to see more awesome 3D printing and board sport projects, because that's most of what we do here. And thanks as always to the crew over on Patreon for your support. It's what keeps the channel alive. As always, I love having you along for the ride, so until next time, I'll see you soon.